The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and today is Wednesday, so it's Ask Dr. Doreen Day and my dog is barking right on cue. Dr. Doreen Granpichet is here with us this morning. We couldn't be more thrilled to have her here with us. She is a true expert in the field of autism, has been working in this field for more decades than I can shake a stick at, more than most of you are in terms of having been on the planet. I know she must have really good skincare. We talk about this all the time because she doesn't look like she could be old enough to do that, but it's true. And there are so many things that I love about her and so many things that she has done in her brilliant and illustrious career. But I love how she sees individuals on the autism spectrum as being the wonderful, unique, whole human beings that they are, and that they fit beautifully into a network that starts with a family and builds out to a community, and that she's all about making sure that everyone within that circle and within that sphere understands how beautiful these people are. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I don't think there's a higher compliment that I could pay anyone, but an expert in the field who's been also helping those individuals to reach whatever heights are within them is a pretty amazing thing. So Dr. Granpichet, welcome.
Thank you so much, Shannon, and good morning, and hello to all of our viewers. And once again, thank you so much for your kind words, Shannon.
Well, thank you for being here. Dr. Granpichet is here and she's going to answer your questions in real time for the next hour. If you watch this show, you know that our mission is to provide information and inspiration. And when we have the opportunity to have experts, and there's no better expert than Dr. Doreen Granpichet, then we bring them here so that you guys can talk to them. Now, I'm going to give you a bunch of information about how you can be watching the show and how you can get your question in. And then I'm going to give you a disclaimer and I'm not going to forget. But you might be watching us right now live on YouTube, on Twitter, or on Facebook Live, or one of 19 other sites that we are currently live on. If you're on those big three, all you have to do is write in your question on YouTube, on Facebook, or on Twitter, and it shows up here in real time on our screen. In fact, we're saying good morning to Shazman. So wonderful to have you with us. And we also podcast. In fact, we are the #1 rated autism podcast worldwide right now. And that is all thanks to all of you for downloading the free podcast wherever you get your podcasts, for reviewing us on iTunes and on other sites, for subscribing on YouTube and other places, and for, in general, for telling your friends and family and saying, here's a place where you can go to get answers. I do want to direct you to our homepage, which is autism-live.com. Our entire library of videos is available there. If you're really grooving on Ask Dr. Doreen and you didn't get your question answered, one of the things you can do is go to our website, and at the top, there's many different places where you can find the Ask Dr. Doreen, but if you go to the top, topics, and you click on it, and it's topics by alphabet. It's all Ask Dr. Doreen. So you can type in whatever you want. You can say, I want to know about toilet training. And then it will show you a bunch of questions that people have asked Dr. Granpichet in the past. And if you click on it, it'll take you directly to where she answered their question. So sometimes somebody has already asked your question. It's all available. There's almost 10 years worth of things there, which is really wonderful. So here's the disclaimer that I promised. There is no expert in this field or any that can give individual specific advice in this particular format, right? They don't have eyes on the individual. And it would be unfair to think that they could give individual specific advice. Unfair to the expert, unfair to the individual. So when you're writing into Dr. Grampiche, know that she can't give you individual specific advice, but if you give her lots of information, what she can do is give you general information that you can go back, have eyes on the situation, get the expert who has literal eyes on the situation, and you'll know better questions to ask. Isn't that a great thing? And people are writing in those questions. We're saying good morning to Christina and Patricia and Sharon. So happy that you guys are here. So did I leave anything out, Dr. Grampiche?
Nope, that's
Okay.
good.
Let's launch into some questions. Sending a hug to this first question that came in even before we started the show. My question is why my 7-year-old son does not spontaneously comment on anything or shows initiation to communicate. He only talks when he needs something. I feel defeated because I have seen kids around his age with years of therapy already having conversations and saying how they feel, but my son is not there yet, and I'm sending them a hug.
Yeah.
But Dr. Grampiche, what would you like to say?
Well, first, I want to also just say I'm so sorry, and I know it's how difficult it is to feel that sense of defeat with our kids. Please don't give up, and please don't blame yourself. Kids learn at different paces, and if you could tell us a little bit more about what therapy maybe your child is actually receiving. That would be helpful. I just want to tell you that it is not so. One of the I guess kind of genetically we are made in a way that ultimately one way or another, whether it's vocal or non-vocal, we will get to a point where we will ask others for things we need. That's what it's the beginning form of communication. It's the earliest form of communication in behavior analysis. It is referred to as manding. It's called a mand. That means you are requesting something that you need. So that is completely, it's great that your child is manding because he has figured out that communication is useful. He's figured out that, if I need something, I will say it and somebody will respond to that. And that's great because a lot of kids who don't mand will tantrum or they'll have aggression because they can't express their needs. So it is a good thing. The next level of development is what we call tacting, which is essentially kind of describing things that you see or pointing out things that are in your environment, labeling, for instance. And then after that is another phase called intraverbals, which is talking about stuff that's not present. And I think that's where you kind of want to get to. But, it's a step-by-step process, and talking about things conversationally takes a lot of other types of prerequisite lessons. So we don't usually jump from manding to doing intraverbals or having communication. So I think that it's important that if you are in therapy or receiving ABA, there are phases to this, and there are lots and lots of kind of prerequisites that your child still has to master in order to put it all together. If you're not receiving direct therapy, then I would refer you to Skills. And Shannon can give you some more information about our online platform called Skills. And Skills will give you a lot of assistance in this area. Not only do we have, developmentally, we have listed all of the areas and stages of language development, but also it'll just walk you through how to go from manding all the way to kind of intraverbals. And there are a lot of lessons that your child will benefit from. And the more, vocabulary and the more grammatical structure the child has learned, the more likely it is that they'll put it together and have communication of a conversational nature.
Dr. Grampiche, I want you to know, because there's a lot of people writing in, they wrote in and said that their child had received 4 years of ABA, but then stopped because of COVID.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that it would be really a very, very useful thing to restart at this point because you're clearly, your child still has needs. And hopefully you'll be able to get some more hours of funding approved so that you can go back to progression through his program.
Okay, I'm gonna pause here for a second and give you guys the skills information for the week because it was brought up. And so get your pencils sharpened and ready because I'm going to talk a little bit and then I'm going to give you the information about how to get these things that I'm talking about. So as Dr. Grampiche mentioned, there's a company that's Skills and a sister company, IBT. They've joined forces. So you only have to call one place to be able to get both of them. And each week during this public health emergency, they have been offering free items to the community to help them to be able to do the things that they need to be able to do. So this week for ABA parents and guardians, they're offering a free IBT, Institute for Behavioral Training, parent e-learning course, Parents Getting Started. So how to get started with services and with doing ABA. It's a great training. You're going to love it. And it's for free. You can't beat free, right? Get your pencil ready. I'm going to give you a number in a minute. For educators, because it's so important that we get good training for educators. You can do this for yourself. You can tell your child's educator about this. They're offering the free IBT educator e-learning module, Educators Starting to Teach. That's available at no charge this week. And then they are continuing to offer their RBT, Registered Behavior Technician 2.0 training course. And they're offering that to parents. This is a training that's a 40-hour course that people take on their way to getting their RBT designation to be a registered behavior technician and work with kiddos on the spectrum. The first part of it is this 40-hour class. We see a benefit. I see a benefit. Dr. Grampiche sees a benefit in caregivers taking this class because you will learn so much. It will automatically up your program for your child. It's pretty incredible. That class normally is about a $440 value. They're offering it to caregivers, parents for free right now on a case-by-case basis. So you have to call them up and say, I will use this, because they don't want to give it to people who don't have time. And a lot of people don't have time for a 40-hour class. But I'm telling you, it's worth the time. So almost to the phone number, they're also offering 10% discount on any skills product, whether you wanted to get the skills curriculum or you just want to get the BIP builder. There's so many great skills products, 10% off of any of those. And here's the phone number. You ready? 877-975-4559, 877-975-4559. I also want to tell you that if you are an international viewer, as many of you have written in and said that you are, and you want to take advantage of these things and you can't call the 800 number, you can either get the WhatsApp app on your phone and call it, or you can email me, s.penrod@autism-live.com. I will forward it to them. I want you to know that it takes them a little while to be able to get back to you. So it's a little bit longer that way, but it takes a little while. s.penrod@autism-live.com. And if somebody wrote in and said, how can we get a past week if we missed it? They cycle through the topics. It will come back up if the pandemic persists. But Johanny, you can also reach out to them, call them and have a conversation with them. Say, I missed this one. Is there any way that I could get it? I can't guarantee what they will say, but I always say there's no harm in asking. Nobody's going to arrest you for asking. There's a whole book called Go for the No. I'm all about that. Okay. So I hope that you guys will check that out. Now, Dr. Grampiche, we've had about 1 million requests of people wanting to know your opinion of things. Should we go through these very quickly? Yes. We had somebody the other day who wrote in and wanted to know your opinion of Tomatis hearing therapy, if you have an opinion about that.
Yeah. So, that Tomatis has not come up in a long time. There are two types of auditory integration therapy, Tomatis, and I believe the other one was Berard. It's such a long time that I haven't even dealt with these. So the Tomatis method was the original method, and it's a milder process. And what it is, just to kind of explain what it is that, about 30 years ago, we concluded that this is when we were just all kind of learning about the fact that kids with autism or people on the spectrum have sensitivity to various sounds in a different way than we do. So the frequency of sound that they hear and is different, is slightly different than the average person. So basically, certain sound frequencies come across to them harsher, and other sound frequencies come across to them as almost they can't hear it. So as a result of that, the concept was that they are having a very hard time deciphering words, language. And I kind of, anecdotally, I can validate that in the sense that I've had individuals who have recovered, adults, who have said to me, yeah, when I was younger, I had a very hard time listening to language because it was for me, it was a background noise. And things that were in the foreground were things like the sound of doors opening and closing and so on. So that's a really important thing, because if you think about it, we average human beings have all come to we have this ability to put background noise on hold while we pay attention to something that is in the foreground, right? And so for individuals on the spectrum, if you can imagine that the sound of language, for instance, is background noise for them, then it obviously would alter their learning, right? In the environment, they're hearing a lot of other sounds that we are not hearing. And I'm sure a lot of our viewers will agree with that. Like, I have so many children, patients who they'll hear an airplane way before anyone else, or they'll hear a truck or something, and we don't know what they're reacting to. So the concept with Tomatis was that you would receive a series of integrated sounds, music. And they had taken very basic, songs. Like, I remember they were like Barry Manilow music, that kind of stuff. And it's modulated so that the sounds that this particular child is oversensitive to would cut out, and the frequencies of sound where this individual cannot hear very well would be louder. And you basically would repeat these sequences Tomatis was 3 sessions of I believe 10 sittings within each session. And the concept was that you were activating the inner hair cells of the inner ear, the hair cells of the inner ear. So you're kind of cells that had become inactive because they were not stimulated, were now becoming active. And this would then allow the individual to hear important sounds, such as language, better. There was a lot of research, and I have to say there was research on both sides. There was some research that showed this is effective. There was some research that showed, no, it's not really that effective. As I said, a second type of auditory integration training later came out, which was 2 sets of sessions. It was a little bit stronger. Honestly, there were also, I have to say, there were also some parents from parent experience. A couple of parents, a lot of parents were very positive about this for a very long time. And Shannon, I want to hear your opinion about it as well. But there were a couple of parents who came to me and said, my child became overly sensitive to sound after I went through this treatment, and I wish I hadn't done it. So I don't know. It's one of those things that's a little bit, I guess, difficult to judge, in my opinion. And because there's research on both sides of it, I just kind of wanted to let you know that.
Yeah, and for me, right when Jen was diagnosed, it was a very hot topic.
It was.
And we looked into it, and I've had people on the show before talking about it, and it's funny, it's come up a lot lately. In fact, last week we have people regularly from Card Research join us on the show, Dr. Grampy. I don't know if you knew that. And we ask people what would they like to know about, and somebody asked for research on listening therapies. So they're going to present to us and bring some
Right.
of the research that you're talking about. So what I remember is hearing about it, and there's a certain amount of it that made sense to me, because I would always look at my son and myself, and I'm somebody that if I just look up there, I'm dizzy. I've always had an inner ear problem, and I'm very sensitive. I can't pay attention. If something is happening in front of me and someone is making noise behind me, I can't. It's just like I'm a mess. I fall completely apart, and I will get up and move my seat. I don't like to go to movies in the movie theater because somebody's sitting behind me with a candy wrapper and I can't hear the movie. It's the weirdest thing. And then we have my son, who is the complete, and we go to Disneyland, I get sick on the tram, car sick on the tram, right?
Yep.
Whereas my kid, you can hold him upside down, spin him a million times. He doesn't ever get dizzy.
Yep.
And I would always say, what happened? Did I get all of the inner ear sensitivity and he got none of it? Like, we're related, and how can this be that we have completely different systems in our ear? So I remember thinking, there's definitely something going on with my inner ear. There's definitely something going on with his inner ear. What stopped us from doing the treatment is that it's just wildly expensive. And it's not available very many places. And so at the time, it was, you had to pay for the professional to come and bring their equipment.
Yeah.
And you had to get like 5 other families to do it. And sometimes families couldn't get five other families to do it, to cover the cost of it. So they would just have several people in the family do it. Here's what's weird is that sometimes there wasn't a big impact for the kiddo, like nothing noticeably, but sometimes the parents had a breakthrough. So I think it's one of those things. It's a little hit and miss at best, from what I've heard. So we'll hear the research, but we didn't do it. I remember I'm always a little fascinated by it because of our inner ear issues, but we didn't do it. So there we go. So the next thing that they want to know about from you is, what do you think about stem cell treatment for autism?
Right. So that, I think, is a little bit too soon to have much comment about. First of all, you can't really access that in the US yet. And unfortunately, there hasn't been, I guess theoretically, or in writing, it makes complete sense, right? Because what you're doing with stem cells is you're building immune functioning. And autism does have a lot to do with immune functioning. But I don't think that there's been enough research yet on the subject, and certainly there's not been enough trials conducted. I'm not aware if there are any trials being conducted in the US. I don't think so at this point, but I would, it's very hard with autism. There are so many things that come up over the years that we as parents want to just try. And it's difficult. And as Shannon said, there are so many things that are hit and miss. Shannon was talking about AIT, and I was just going through my memory and thinking, oh my God, like there's so many things over the years that have become fads. And we just have to wait a while to find out more. And I think with stem cells, I don't think this is a fad, because it's a very scientific process that is being used for other types of treatments for other illnesses, and I would wait a little bit longer right now to see what comes out of the science.
Absolutely. I'm in complete agreement with you there. Okay. And then we had another question about food, that lots of people in Bangladesh believe that if they stop some specific food, their child will start talking. What will be your opinion, Dr. Doreen and Shannon? And somebody else wrote in answer to that and said that many people talk about the gluten-free, casein-free diet when talking about this. So what is your opinion? Stopping a food, enabling your child to talk?
So let's just take a moment and talk about kind of the whole science of it, because I don't want to just say, yes, if you stop certain foods, your child might be able to vocalize better, or no. I'm going to give you the kind of background of the whole thing. So the concept arose when the realization came about for actually a parent who realized that when her child was drinking milk, he would be very much kind of out of it and in his own world and brain cloud, and not accessible. And so she started to remove milk from his diet and actually did see a very significant reaction in her child, where her child started to pay attention now. So a lot of research started happening. This is now back in the early 90s. And a lot of people started looking at this concept and saying, hey, what is going on with that? That's sort of interesting. And for our viewers, today, if you have a young child on the spectrum, you will not even think about it that a lot of parents are on either a casein-free, gluten-free, corn-free, or soy-free diet. And you'll be told by someone, hey, you might want to try one of these diets or all of them because it might help your child and you might actually be on the diet. But the question is why? And what is the background to that whole thing? So starting all the way back from when this one parent discovered that, a lot of research was done, and the conclusion was that somewhere around 80% of individuals, at that time the research was individuals on the spectrum, but at this point I'll tell you that it's most of us, are unable to properly break down and digest the protein in dairy and the protein in whole grains. So the protein in dairy is called casein, and the protein in whole grains is called gluten. And the way that we are supposed to digest those things is you eat the protein, and then you break it down into what's called a peptide. A peptide is a chain of amino acids, right? And then your body further breaks it down from this chain into individual amino acids. And these individual amino acids then kind of travel through the body and give your body nutrition. Now, if you are not able, and this was what was being found, that our children were not breaking down these particular proteins in gluten and casein all the way down to amino acid. They're just breaking it down to the peptide chain level. And then to make things worse, a lot of these of our children, the peptide chain was then leaking through the gut. And this is, the theory was called leaky gut, which really is just gastrointestinal inflammation. And if you have inflammation in your GI tract, then there is likelihood that these peptide chains might actually leak through and start to circulate and eventually have an effect on your brain. And the effect that they have on your brain is like an endorphin effect. It's kind of like having alcohol, drinking, kind of being a little bit out of it, loopy, right? So the concept was that basically, and all of this is now scientifically researched, is that if you have inflammation and you're eating something that you cannot digest all the way down to the amino acid level, and you just break it down to a peptide chain, and then the peptide is leaking through and circulating in your body and eventually affecting it'll pass through the blood-brain barrier to your brain and cause this kind of loopy type of feeling. Obviously, that is not good for learning, right? If you're sort of out of it, you're not really learning. And if we are able to remove that, then several things happen. Your brain fog goes away, you're more alert, and then also at the same time, maybe your inflammation will start to go down, and overall you will just be having a healthier existence. So that is where the beginning of this comes from. Have I seen, and I want to say also that it's not just casein and gluten at this point, it's a lot of other things as well. A lot of individuals react to soy and corn, and in fact, even beyond that, there a lot of our foods unfortunately have a lot of pesticides and hormones and so on, and so it is not unlikely, it is quite likely that we are reacting to the food source that we're on. in different ways. Now, you might ask yourself, if we're all exposed to the same foods, how come only our kids react this way? And that goes to a whole nother discussion, which is that many of our kids have low redox cycles. So they actually are unable to detoxify from all of these things that are classified as toxins in our environment, like pesticides and so on. So let's put that aside and answer the question. Yes, I have seen children whose not just their vocalization, but their attention as a whole improved once they were on the proper diet. Now, it doesn't work for everyone. I want to make sure that I say that. There are some children that just, it doesn't really matter. And then there are others where, with dairy, with casein, Shannon, the telltale sign is like dark rings around the eyes. Sometimes with gluten, it's usually bloating in the stomach, that sort of stuff. But if you, it's certainly worth a try. Let's put it that way. And if you're in a place where you can actually see a physician, there are tests that can be done to help identify if you have sensitivity to these proteins and whether or not you or your child should be, those items should be removed from their diet. So that's kind of a long answer, but wanted to give all the background.
Yeah, I do want to say one thing that I think a lot of times people, we have children on the spectrum and we want something to help our children and to be so comprehensive. But I always get nervous about, how we group things together. And I certainly saw in my child that when we took out gluten and dairy, my child was a better student. He was in a better place to learn. It didn't magically give him skills that he didn't possess, but it made him able to learn. And I think that's the important distinction that the other day we watched the Danish film that's out right now called Another Round. It's the director of it is nominated for an Oscar for Best Direction. So we wanted to see what all the hubbub and fuss was about. And it's a group of men who decide that maybe if they drink and stay a little drunk, that their lives will improve. And, and these are men who are totally functional, but, we know what's going to happen, right? They get to a point where they can't function anymore. Imagine if you didn't have a skill to begin with and you're supposed to learn it, but you're a little bit drunk or a lot drunk. And that's what it was for my son. I do want to say that Christina has written in and said, we took our son off of dairy and then reintroduced it and saw aggressive behaviors. Not sure if it's connected. And I think that sometimes we don't want to see the evidence that's there, but you have your data. And if you're not sure about what milk can do to children who are sensitive, I really want to encourage everybody, Google Phil Donahue milk children. And you will find a video that's from like 1984 where they did something horrible. They took a bunch of children that they knew have milk, sensitivities, that their families had taken them off it. And these families agreed to this, which is crazy that they did. And it's unethical. But they here were these children sitting on the stage and they're perfectly fine. And they go to commercial and they say, during the commercial, we're going to give these children milk. And then we're going to film what happens. This is highly unethical, right? But it changed the way a lot of people looked at things. So they justified it. They come back from the commercial and the children are hitting each other. They're crying. They're inconsolable because milk is not great for everyone. It just isn't. I know we want to think, oh, milk, it's, for some people can handle it, but some kids can't. Take a look at that, Christina. You'll never wonder if it's connected again. Okay.
And actually, Shannon, on that note, a lot of time in the 90s, when a lot of people were trying out the diets, and I still to this day really strongly urge parents to consider some of the diets because I've seen tremendous changes in our kids. And as you said, it's not about like sudden improvement of language. It's more about learning. It's about their brain wakes up. But what I do want to say is back then when we used to like advise people to try it, it was very much this is how you do with dairy in particular. You remove all dairy for 3 weeks, and then you reintroduce a small amount and see if there's a reaction, like a glass of milk or something. With gluten, gluten or whole grain products, it's a little bit longer. The reaction takes. You kind of have to be free of gluten for at least 3 months in order to really see some sort of change. And it's hard, but reintroduction of the item usually gives it away.
And Sharon has written in and said, we're the only species that drinks another species' milk. Never thought of it that way. Thank you, Sharon. But Sharon also wants to know that, do you find children diagnosed with ASD also have temperature regulation issues? I work with several individuals who overheat easily and are constantly drinking water. Is there a condition for this? Other medical diagnoses have been ruled out, such as diabetes and thyroid. Interesting.
Honestly, I would have to say no. I don't think, and we're talking over 40 years, I don't think I've ever really thought of that as being a correlating, like a comorbidity. So I would say from my perspective, I've not seen that. That doesn't mean that it isn't there. It could very well be, but it isn't something that has been discovered yet.
Very interesting. Nancy, I'm saying hi to Nancy, has said, I just found out that UCSD has a video game that's been FDA approved for ADHD treatment, also helps with some autism. Nancy, if you can tell me what the name of it is, I'll reach out and see if we can have them on the show. But it reminds me, Dr. Grampiche, that this week, Camp Discovery has a brand new it's reopening, I don't know, a grand reopening. They're putting out a new version of Camp Discovery, which we know for sure from research is very effective at teaching language skills to young language learners. It's a free download, and it is a great companion piece to skills. You get a code with your skills account that you put into your Camp Discovery. And then as your child plays the games, it will tell their skills account what they've mastered, which is pretty fantastic. And it's coming out with new content this week. So Camp Discovery, check out. Yeah, go ahead, talk.
I just wanted to comment on that real quick. Yeah, Camp Discovery is a series of games that we developed over the years, and they are games that the child can play on an iPad or a phone or computer, and these are educational games. So as the child plays the game, they master particular topics. Now, with ADHD, the actual tests for ADHD are usually computerized tests where there's a stimulus comes on the screen and the child is supposed to press a buzzer at the time in order to kind of indicate that they saw this stimulus, right? And so they've taken that concept, and if the child doesn't actually see that thing because they're distracted, then they will probably get a positive for the diagnosis of ADHD. So I could see easily that there could be a game developed. In fact, any kind of game like similar to like Pac-Man, where you kind of have to track a bunch of things that are happening at the same time, would also be and it's rapid, would also kind of activate your brain in that sense and force you to pay attention to specific things. I remember working with a bunch of people who were developing some games for ADHD, and it was very much the same concept, which was kind of you were in a very fast car, essentially, and you were going through a universe, and you had to press the buzzer when you saw certain things or go around various things, and that definitely did help with ADHD. All of these things have to do with kind of speeding up or slowing down our attention and our ability to attend.
There we go. Okay, I got to say, this is the first time that this has ever happened, but I'm so intrigued. I want to do an interview here. Somebody has written in and said that they were diagnosed at the age of 19. They went on to become an adult film star. Mm-hmm. And so I want to know more about that. But their question is, do herbal remedies help?
Yeah, I mean, some obviously, like anything else, there are certainly certain herbal remedies that are helpful with various things. It depends on what you're looking for help with. For example, an herbal remedy that is very effective for sleep is valerian root, right? There are certain things that are very effective for a particular thing. There's no herbal remedy that is going to be effective for autism, just because autism is a series of different things. But certainly there are herbal remedies that a lot of people use if the child is, let's say, needs to be more energized. Then there are various herbal remedies for that. For sleep, as I said, for gastrointestinal inflammation, there are a lot of different things that are effective in helping kind of underlying issues.
Wonderful. Okay, this was a question that came in the night that I wanted to make sure that I got to. There's a daughter, and it's very long, so I'm going to edit a little bit here. She just recently turned 10 years old. She asked for a book on archaeology, and so they gave her one. And it's not an easy to read book, but she really seemed to enjoy it and was reading it. They thought it was a gamble to give it to her, but that's what she asked for, and so they gave it to her. And by the way, they want you to know that she's on the autism spectrum. It's very hard for her to make social connections, but she is extra interested in subjects like math, history, and physics. And today, mom wrote in and said yesterday when she picked her up from school, the daughter asked for a hug immediately, and she knew that meant something had gone on. So upon further investigation, talking to the teacher, she found out the teacher has had a habit of taking things away from this young woman and saying that they're too hard for her. So the teacher had taken away the archaeology book and gave her a book that was a fiction story. She says her daughter doesn't like fiction stories and had a lot of trouble reading the book. And the teacher read that as, see, I'm right. If this book is too hard for her, then certainly the archaeology book is too hard for her. To add insult to injury, this is not the first time that the teacher has taken things away from this young woman. It seems like she's very fond of doing that and has berated her, calling her childish for playing a game like Pokemon Go. Mom is very concerned about this. When they met with the director of the program, the teacher is constantly blaming mom, saying that she's pushing her in the wrong directions. And mom says, she's my first daughter and I try really hard to do well, but I know that I make mistakes. Is this one of them, giving them the book? Am I really leaving her too free by letting her choose what she wants and likes? Or is this teacher all up a tree and wrong? She didn't write that. I'm saying that. Is this teacher all up a tree and all wrong?
Yeah. So I think that everybody should be given the choice to engage in things that are interesting for them. So I don't think you've done anything wrong in regards to giving your daughter books that she finds interesting at all. I mean, I think that's a wonderful thing. And it sounds like she's very interested in a lot of different things. And therefore, she's, looking at and learning a lot of different, very important subjects. I do want to say that the other side of that is that sometimes our kids get so entranced with something that they don't pay attention to everything else that's going on in their life. And you just want to make sure that the child is able to, as rewarding as these books are, she's also able to pay attention to her social environment in that sense. Other than that, no, I think the teacher might have a little bit of an issue there.
I'm with you. And I just want to say, I'm a former teacher and it's hard in the classroom. It's really, really hard. And I think it's hard for parents to know what goes on in the classroom and what teachers need to do to be able to teach, because that's the job of a teacher, is to be able to teach. Unfortunately, there's so much behavior happening in the classroom that some teachers never get to teach. They're only dealing with the behavior. And that's because not enough teachers are being trained in the things that Dr. Grant-Pichet. But so I always like to be compassionate towards teachers and say that it's good to compromise and go in and say, you can ask for a behavior intervention plan for your child and specifically put in there that in no place can she take something away from your child that is not physically harming her, right? And give that teacher things that she can do when she wants her. If it's that she wants her to read the fiction book, can we compromise? Can she do 10 minutes of the fiction and 10 minutes of the archaeology book. But I think you need to have an IEP meeting. I think you need to get in there, ask for help. It's towards the end of the year. Like, because if this is the beginning of the year, you know what I'll tell you? Ask to be moved to a different classroom. But you know, it's towards the end, and that might be more disruptive to her. But see if you can get the teacher to compromise. She probably means well, but you're not wrong, Mom. I'm sending you a hug. Our kids ask for something and we get it for them for the birthday. That's nobody's business. That's certainly not the teacher's business. And she's got no business taking it away from her unless she's hitting herself or somebody else with it. Or it's interrupting time when she wants to learn something else. Sheesh, right? I get upset, Dr. Grampy.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Sometimes teachers have this thing that they know for sure. You know what? They don't. Like, nobody has given an award to a teacher for being able to do the kinds of things that Dr. Grampy has been able to do across her lifetime with kiddos on the autism spectrum. That's just a fact. So anyway.
Yeah. Aside from that, I mean, I also want to add, Shannon, that a lot of, you know, we have enough going on as parents, and we don't need someone giving us additional guilt. You know, like you're you're educating your child and giving your child books that are interesting, and that's that, and that's a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm seeing that Christina wrote back in, she had said about giving him dairy and that they saw behaviors. She said also when he was on dairy, his GI issues were not as bad. Reintroduced in his BM are horrible, constipation, chronic, and huge, painful BM. Yeah, so listen to your data, listen to your gut, and absolutely. We got lots of different things. Okay. Thank you, Nancy. I see the name of the video game. Okay. I'm so glad because this person wrote in something and I got the second half of it. Now I'm getting the rest of it. My son is 5.
Can I just real quickly, sorry, Nancy has been writing in about this NeuroRacer and EndeavorRx, and I think this is Dr. Ghazali, and I know him, and he's fantastic. And if you can get him on on the show, I think that would be great because he's very talented guy and might have a lot for our viewers.
We will reach out to them today. Thank you. My son is 5 and I'm at a loss on how to change a particular behavior. He bangs his right hand on tables constantly and also claps his hands very hard. They sound like clap toys. It literally hurts my ears. The function is automatic. I've tried to replace the banging on the table with giving him bongs to bang on, and he will only use it for a few seconds, then goes right back to banging the table. Even worse than that is the clapping. I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do, and I'm going crazy. I'm so overwhelmed with all the noise and the pitch of the noise. I know automatic function is and then I think it goes back to the top. Hang on. But they know that it's automatic function. I don't know how they know it's automatic function. Hard as a behavior to change. Any ideas? And thank you so much.
So that's it's very hard to deal with something that has an automatic function. But what that actually means for the rest of our viewers is that by doing it, the individual receives reinforcement just in the act of performing that behavior. So the behavior itself is in some way maintaining itself because it is somehow rewarding. So the question I have for this parent is, when you say that it's automatic, what is the source of reinforcement for the child? Is the child actually enjoying the sound that he hears when he does this, or is he enjoying the feeling on his hand when he does this? And that would be kind of important to identify, because your treatment is to replace it with something of a similar function, right? So if it's something that has to do with the feeling of clapping or touching the table, then giving him and I see the parent wrote, I think both. Yeah, so we can't think about these things. We kind of have to figure it out. And what you need to do is rule one out and then rule the other out. So, can you give him, let's say, let's get rid of that, whatever reinforcer it is. So what happens if he has gloves on for a whole, like if you put any kind of gloves on and he's not able to feel it or make that noise again, will he continue doing it? Will he try to get the gloves up? Then we'll know. The other thing is, what if he has noise canceling headphones on? Will he continue to do this? It's sort of important to find out if it is a sound thing, then you might be able to replace it with some other type of sound thing. For instance, you might be able to put him on a schedule where he is allowed to listen to particular music when he does that. So I see the mom has written he won't clap with gloves on. So we're talking about something that might have something to do with texture rather than sound. So replacing it with bongos is not really going to do it, because he wants the feeling, he wants the sensation, possibly. And if he wants the sensation, then I think you're going to have to work on getting him under a schedule where things that produce a physical sensation, similar physical sensation, are allowed at certain intervals of the day. See if, for example, if he washes his hands, and try to find something functional. So if he washes his hands, does it help? Does it help him actually reduce this behavior? If he plays with a Play-Doh, does that help reduce this behavior? These are the types of things where I would really recommend that you have a team, if you can. Get a behavior analyst, because what you want to try to do is do it right. So you want to get data. First, you want to show like how frequently is he actually clapping and or hitting the table, and what's the intensity and what's the duration, like what's the rate, how many times a day, and how long will it go when he starts, right? And then what you do is you try these different things that I suggested. Once you've identified, first you identify, is it a sensation type of automatic reinforcement, or is it an auditory type of automatic reinforcement? And certainly it could be both, but let's assume it's one or the other first. And then you try these things, right? You try, for instance, washing of hands. If I have him wash hands on a schedule of every 20 minutes, does the other thing go down? If I have him, let's say, put lotion on, does this affect it? If I have him have Play-Doh, have access to Play-Doh every 20 minutes or every 30 minutes for a period of a minute, does that affect the other thing? So you're going to try these interventions, but you need to be tracking the clapping to see if it has actually gone down or not.
Yeah. I always think it's interesting, sensory issues, and how we all tend to think that it's just people on the autism spectrum. And yet, you guys know every year we do a toy guide, and normally it's about this time of the year when we start getting toys in that people want us to consider for the toy guide. And I will put all the hand sensory toys on my desk. And I will just play with them throughout the day. But people would come, before COVID, people would come into my office, and I was always fascinated to see who picked up what toy, how did they play with it, when did they use it when they were talking. But I think that we are people who really like that sensation. Some people like the squishy stuff where you could stretch it. Some people like the feeling of like couches that were just, bouncy and soft in their hands. Other people liked things that you could manipulate. I mean, I don't think it's all that unusual that a child would want to do something with their hands. I see adults not on the spectrum that if it's there and available, they will do it. And if the table is available and that feels good, I just always like to remind us that sometimes the things that we look at and we think are weird are not all that weird.
That's
right?
so true. Well, 100%, absolutely right. I mean, if you think about all the different things that we play with during the day, or those types of, absolutely, everything is on a continuum, Shannon. And that's what I always say. It's completely fine to do all of these things. We don't want to label any of these or judge them. It only becomes a problem if it prevents you from all the other things in life.
Well, and it's clearly sensory driving the caregiver crazy, and that I can, I'm wanting to send a hug. All right, I'm squeezing one last question in before we go. My child keeps watching weird videos of kids tantruming. And when I ask him, he says, I watch them so that I won't do that. But then she reports that that is exactly the behavior he's engaging in. So what advice do you have about how can she stop? The child is 10 and she wants him to stop watching the videos. I think I'm going to guess that what mom really wants is him to stop tantruming, like the videos.
Yeah. And I would say, first of all, stop him from watching the videos. There are a lot of ways that parents can now block certain sites, or I'm not sure where he's watching them. I assume they're online. And you certainly should absolutely, at the age of 10, block certain sites. There's no question. I mean, all of us should be preventing our kids from having access to all different types of things. No question about it. They can have access to horrible things online. So first of all, block those things. And there's no negotiation about that sort of thing. I mean, there's thousands of research articles that show that kids in general tend to become more aggressive when they watch more aggressive things. I mean, there's like all kinds of games right now that also result in the same thing. So if you feel that your child is imitating those behaviors, just block them. And also make sure that block those access to those things that are provoking it. But also maybe make sure that you teach your child other ways to express frustration, because tantruming is usually a frustrated way of communicating that you don't want something or that you want something, right? It's always about having access to something or avoiding something. And so if we can get better at teaching our kids to express that, like, I'm frustrated because you're not letting me go outside and play, or I'm really frustrated because whatever it is, vocalizing those types of things tends to help our kids reduce their tantrums.
Well, and I'm just noticing, and I'm laughing a little bit. I love this parent just so much. But they put emojis after, and most of the emojis were the face plant, like the, why is this happening? But there is one that is the emoji. It looks like to me like it's the middle finger, and expressing their frustration, right? Think about all the ways you just found a novel way to express your frustration through emojis. And what does he have? Like, it may be, I don't know. I maybe like he would be interested in learning how to show you emojis, how he's feeling. I know kids who do that. I'm just saying that there are many different ways to express frustration, and you just expressed frustration very eloquently. So finding him a way to do that, I think, would be really wonderful. We're totally out of time. Let me just thank all of you for being here, and let me apologize that we didn't get to more questions. It was so wonderful to have all of you write in. And it's Dr. Granpeesheh, thank you so much, because you are such a light in this world, and it's such a delight to have you here always. I appreciate you more than you know. Tomorrow is April 1st, and that means two things. It's April Fool's Day, and it begins a month where it's Autism blank month. Here at Autism Live, we're saying pick the A that you like. Is it Autism Awareness Month? Is it Autism Action Month? Is it Autism Acceptance? Or is it Autism Access? Or pick another word. It's not one size fits all. Which kind of a month are you commemorating? Which kind of a month do you want to celebrate? Because I would like for us to be celebrating good things this month. So that's where we're coming from. Now, because it is April Fool's Day, I have asked for, and this is, I know before I have played tricks and said we were having Oprah and it was April Fool's. We weren't having Oprah. I lived and breathed to have Oprah, but we're not having Oprah tomorrow. And I'm not even pretending we're having Oprah, but we are, in fact, no April Fool about it, having my son and my husband on the show tomorrow. That's never happened with both of them before. And I'm afraid, Dr. Granpeesheh, because you've been there when the two of them are together and they're like two big puppies, and I can't, they'll be messing around doing something while I'm trying to ask them questions. But I promise you, it will be funny if nothing else. So tomorrow on the show, my boys will be here. Then on Friday, listen to this, you guys, because Friday is actual World Autism Awareness Day. Dr. Granpeesheh is going to be here with me, and we're kicking off a month long where we're recognizing different groups in the autism community. And we're going to start with stars, card stars, people who are working in the field every day with kiddos on the autism spectrum that we're aware of at CARD, that are people who are making a difference every day and have been nominated to be selected to be someone. We did this last year, right at the beginning of COVID, and it was so inspirational. We had such a good time. So that starts on Friday. Then wait till you see some of the other groups of people that we're going to be acknowledging throughout the month of April. And also, we celebrate Dr. Granpeesheh because it is her birthday month in the month of April. So we will be celebrating her and the work that she has been doing for over, I'm going to say it, over 4 decades. Stop. Nobody believes that. They just look at me and go, you're a liar. Look at that skin. She was not doing anything at 40 years ago, except maybe laying in a crib, maybe. But that's not true. There's some really good skincare, I think, and some good genes. And some happiness, right? At helping so many people. In any case, that's all kicking off tomorrow. I guarantee you're going to want to be here. And you can ask my kiddo questions. Those of you who have been like, well, I'd like to hear what Jem has to say about this. Start writing those questions in. He'll be happy to hear them. All right. Thank you, Dr. Granpeesheh. Until tomorrow, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. Thanks for watching Autism Live. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.